Dale digs down under.
I'm digging down under me shed.
Just before we go ahead and hop up onto the roof, the system actually comes from this isolator already. I've got the cables and stuff up into there, and then they lead around up and underneath the gutter, and they continue all the way up here under the bloody sewage pipe vent, and then around through a bit of flexi. They continue around the corner and then end up coming up here around the side, then up and across, and then up and onto the roof. So guys, I'm up on the roof now. We'll have a quick look at the bloody rail system. It looks pretty snazzy up here. I've just got one panel in place. So I wanted to keep all of the shadow from the panels up on top of the roof. I didn't want it spilling over onto the next roof, because if I want to put panels there, it's going to affect it. Today is 5 days from the winter solstice, so hopefully that means that the sun is at its lowest point in the sky now for the year. The shadow will only get tighter in on the setup as we get closer to the summer solstice and the sun sits higher in the bloody sky, and that should give us a perfect setup. And then what I think I'll do is, after I've got these ones all in place and I've got the 6 up on this section, then I'll go and run another 6 when I can afford it all the way along the front there, and then that will double up the size of the system up here. It'll make it a lot bloody bigger. So what I've got to do now that I've finally worked that out, I've been waiting days to be able to actually get up here at the right time, I'll go along and actually attach all these mounts to the ground. As I go along attaching them to the ground, I'll just unbolt them from these rails, so that way they're sitting free. And then once I've got them all attached, then I'll ensure that the rails are sitting square to each other, and that way when I get to the other end with the panels, I don't run out of one rail and it's all sitting there bloody crocodiling all the way up. So it's a little bit of a procedure here. What I'm doing is I'm measuring in from the edge of the roof, so that way it's tracking right with the edge of the roof area. Then I go and get my drill with my 1225s in it. Put these holes in first. Don't drive it all the way home, just start it. Just lift it up and just knock that little bit of swarf off there, because that'll just want to rust out the bloody colour bond. And then I go and get a bit of silicone, cover over the hole. This will do a few things. This will help stick the thing down, give it a little bit of extra grip. It will seal it up, so hopefully I don't get any rainwater in there ever, down through into the carport. And it'll stop these screws from rattling loose, because they're bound in with this stuff as well as being bloody drilled into the steel. Wipe that bit of excess off into there. That'll be sweet as. Now I'll just keep going with these other 3, get them all sorted the same way. I've got the first 2 done already. We're almost ready to parallel up these bars. Now that I've gone ahead and got all the back bits locked up and supported, time to go ahead and crack off all of these bits on the front and level up these rails together. But I've also got to slide this bloody panel down, so I'm going to try and land it there on that bit of timber. Oh, I hope this works out, otherwise it's going to scratch the hell out of the bloody roof. Bloody lost it. Should have just been happy with it when it hit first, but I think it was still going to bloody roll the timber over. I'll get down here. You know, oh Jesus, they're not super heavy, but oh jeez, they can be awkward. Bloody things. Oh, she wants to go still. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Just steady. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, nah, just gonna have to lift it off. Dicing with death here. There we go. Better grab that tool. I'm gonna go along and crack all these off. So what I've done as well to make life a bit easier in the future, I've actually coated these bolts with a bit of this anti-seize copper stuff, and that should stop it from seizing up inside the aluminium. Seems like the stainless that they use on these things and the aluminium want to react together, and it makes that white rust. Bloody hell, they're seized up. So I'm hoping by putting a bit of this copper grease stuff on there, it'll be, yeah, easy days in the future. So now that rail's all freed up, I can just roll it over and push it out of the way, and that'll allow me access to these holes here, so that way I can lock all of this row down. That's a bit of a flaw in my design. I should have put this a little bit further back, so that way it could be attached and you could hit these, or if you needed to move them, you could leave this attached. So I buggered that up a little bit, but all that takes is undoing this screw and moving it back over here. It's not a big deal, but yeah, I'm not going to put an extra hole in it. So after going through and screwing all these ones in place, I've taken a measurement from this end plate to the end of the beam. I know these beams are the exact same length, these rails. I've done the same at the top, and then I've taken a measurement as well, full length from bracket all the way to the bracket at the other end up there. Everything should be bang on square. When I put a panel up there and I measure inwards at the base of each panel and see if it's running parallel to this, that should tell me as well if it's running square or not. Time to put this bottom rail back on, get it set to height. Oh geez, this is bloody glorious. Absolutely loving it. All of these rails as well, they're all running perfect with the roof sheets. Let's get these panels on. So now I've got everything up on the roof and installed. Time to give this bloody roof a clean down. All these little tiny bits of swarf, if you don't get rid of them, what'll happen is the night air will form and you'll get dew and everything on them. Tomorrow they'll be all rusty and they'll have stained all your sheets. And then if you don't get them off, it'll just eat through your bloody colour bond, and then you're stuffed. You're going to have to get new sheets once they all rust out. So make sure you always get onto that stuff as soon as you've done this. Don't leave it overnight, no matter what. That swarf, it'll ruin everything. So as you're making your way along, you want to be hosing all up on top of the racks. Make sure you've hosed off everywhere that you've drilled the holes into. Then you want to be making sure that you're getting it out from all around the back of them, underneath where the sheets sit. Get it out from underneath where the sheets are sitting on the front mount, and push all that stuff out the front of the panel area. You've got to make sure you get it out there, so that way you can hit it on the other side of the panels and push it all the way off the roof. Because if you just hose this bit out, it'll sit in all the gullies and it'll rust out further down the sheets. So it's also a good idea, before you start doing this job, go ahead and clean out all your gutters. You're going to want to spray all the swarf that's now accumulated in the gutter. So you've got to make sure you clean all your leaves and everything out. Get it pretty smicko before you even start, and that means at the end of the job, it's easy. I'll just go ahead and do a couple of runs like that and just make sure I've got all of it out of there. The next task with these girls is to get all these cables hooked up. These are 10mm squared cables. They run for 8 meters down to where the isolator switch is. I use 10mm because it's less voltage drop over distance. The bigger cable you use, the less voltage you lose and the less current that you actually lose that's traveling through to heat dissipation. So go as big as you can. It actually saves you in the long run, and then your system is viable to upgrade in the future too. Bloody hell, Charlie. I know, I'm up on the roof. Settle down. And then I think this earth cable, it's a 6mm earth cable. I'm pretty sure that is just to maybe take lightning strikes, stuff like that. I don't think it's big enough, but that's what came with the rails. And I'd like to know exactly if it's for if this stuff becomes live, but it's not going to do anything because this here only triggers the RCD on the power system. So that goes through your earth leakage and trips the RCD and makes you not get electrocuted by the 240. But that's not going to isolate this stuff, and it's got nothing to do with how this electricity flows, because this is all DC and it's not part of that system. So I'll hook it up to my earth stake anyway. I can't see the bloody harm in it, and I've got to get a junction box up here and solder these cables into some 4mm cables that then stretch out to each one of the panel sections, and they'll all have the MC4s already put on them by the shop. So I'm getting those made up, and that'll make life easy there. Just got to get some soldering done. Oh yeah, one other thing, I didn't show you is installing these panels or anything like that, because it's just a 6mm Allen key and you slide them into each other. It's really basic, but I was wanting to concentrate on installing these panels and getting everything right, and didn't want to be messing around with the camera, because if I drop these things, they're bloody stuffed, and they're not cheap. Like they're cheap now compared to what they were. How I'm going to be setting these ones up is I'm going to take this positive, and it seems like all solar manufacturers use like a international standard, that this little dicky bit, that's your positive, and this little bit, that's your negative. So female's negative, male's positive. So the internal part of that is where the metal contactor is, and the external part of that little tiny tube in there, that's where the metal contactor is. To make these things series, what you're going to do is you're going to take one panel, negative, and join it to another panel's positive, then take the negative from this panel and put it into your line that runs away to where you're joining up your cabling, and take this one and plug it into the positive of the other panel. What this effectively does is it doubles the voltage, so they'll go from 50 volts VOC to 100 volts VOC, but it keeps the amperage exactly the same. So how you work out your watts is you times volts by amps, and that gives you how many watts you're producing. So you'll still get the exact same amount of watts, but you need way smaller cables if it's high voltage, not high current. And when you go up to high voltage, you get less power losses over distance. As soon as you go into high current, then you lose heaps of it over distance. So it's much more effective to do it this way. It's getting dark now. That's another day done and dusted. I've got all of this stuff bloody cable tied up now. Got everything nice and neat. I've still got the last two tails hanging out here, because I'm waiting on the last two panels to put up in this run. It's turned into quite the good looking setup up here. These are decent sized panels. Absolutely loving this, guys. I've been waiting quite a while to be able to put up some decent panels on the roof. We're almost there. So I'm getting all of these joints soldered up now, guys. I've got all the positives soldered onto this 10mm squared. Now I've got to get the other negatives soldered up. Already soldered together the ends of them. I like to link all them together. Then I can slide the heat shrink over the top without fraying them all up. And then I'll actually leave this all loose. I won't twist it up or anything like that. And then I can push the center of this up the center of that, and then wind those cables all the way around the exterior of that joint. And then I solder the two together. I'll do a little example down in the shed. I don't want to be doing it up on the roof. It's too dangerous up on this ladder trying to do all of this. I've had accidents off ladders before and ended up in hospital, so I don't plan on doing it again anytime soon. Well, I've got this part all sorted out now, guys. Everything's soldered in. Panels are hooked up. Well, that's this phase complete. Remember, guys, small knocks break bloody big rocks. See you next time.